Coming up on today's show, the Falcons made some roster moves, plus Atlanta was linked to a cornerback trade. Now, full disclosure, I am filming this episode during my live punishment for potentially saying Dallas Turner is a Falcon. I don't remember it, but evidently I might have said it once or twice. So every single time someone put tomatoes in the live chat, I took a shot of beer. So if I sound like I just finished a night at the saloon, just bear with me. But let's get into some of the roster moves that were made. So Harrison Hand was signed by the Falcons, a cornerback, and then Anthony Sao was waived by the Falcons. You can tell that I've had one too many shots because they were not both signed. So Anthony was waived, Harrison was signed. I'm sorry for the typo. That's my fault. So let's get to know Harrison Hand a little bit here. He was a 2020 fifth-round draft pick. So, in a way, this is the Falcons' 2025 fifth-round draft pick, right? Which they no longer have, so it all equals out. The last time we saw Harrison Hand on an NFL field was in 2022. He was with the Chicago Bears. He played in 4 games. He made 1 start. In his career, 27 appearances, 2 starts. So, there's not a lot of tape on the man, which means there's not a lot of deep diving we can do. He started off at Baylor. He transferred to Temple. In his career, 34 tackles, 3 pass breakups, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble. So this is just more competition for the bottom of the cornerback roster, if I'm being fully honest with you guys. Like, no offense to Mr. Hand, but I think there is a big uphill battle for him. And this is likely more of a practice squad type signing than an actual contender for the 53-man roster. But at the same time, the Falcons' cornerback room could not be more wide open. I remember one time I worked in minor league baseball, and stick with me, I'm going to land this plane just fine. And I was talking to one of the prospects, who was the Cubs AA team, and I was like, what team did you want to get drafted by? And I remember his response surprised me. He said, whichever team had the worst bullpen. I was like, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I always thought you'd go with, like, a playoff caliber team or your hometown team. But like, no, and understandably so, it's wherever I can have a good opportunity to rise up the depth chart. So if you are a free agent corner or an under the radar cornerback, Atlanta's the place to be because it is a great spot to compete to move up the depth chart. The ice above you is very thin. So I still would like another cornerback. I don't think this room is in a spot where it is good to go for the remainder of the season. A.J. Terrell is the undoubted number 1 cornerback on this team. There's very little concerns about him. Sure, the production has kind of dropped off the last 2 years, but that's more of a product of NFL teams going up against the Falcons going, all right, there's one good cornerback in A.J. Terrell, and there's another good cornerback. No, there's not another good cornerback. It's just A.J. Terrell. So let's not throw to A.J. Terrell's side of the field. And so that means A.J. Terrell can't get the interceptions. He can't get the pass breakups because why would you target A.J. Terrell when CB2 is so much worse than him? So we're going to find out what CB2 this year is made up of. You've got a battle going with Clark Phillips, Mike Hughes, and Antonio Hamilton in my eyes. Last year, Hamilton with the Cardinals. D. Alford, I think, is a good pencil-in candidate for the nickel cornerback position, which in previous years was not that crucial to a defense's success. Ladies and gentlemen, teams are deploying 3 wide receiver sets more than ever. Teams are also getting the ball out in the passing game to running backs in the flat and tight ends. Who makes those tackles out in the flat? It's your nickel cornerback. So you need a good nickel if you want to have a successful defense in the NFL. So there's a lot of pressure on the former CFL star D. Alford. Now, before we get any further in today's show, there is no roster signing that is too small. We're at 22,140 subscribers. We need 60 to get to 22,200. If you want a Falcons YouTube host that will take shots of beer because he was man enough to say Dallas Turner, Bill Belichick, and Justin Fields are all a Falcon, and then take his medicine when he's wrong, hit that sub button. Okay, Bleacher Report. What a bunch of clowns. They say the Falcons' biggest hole is a cornerback. That's actually true. So they're not clowns for that part. But I don't think the signing of Harrison Hand alleviates the pressure at the cornerback room, right? I don't want to beat a dead horse here, and I won't repeat myself. But yeah, there is definitely room to grow in the cornerback room outside of A.J. Terrell. So here's what Bleacher Report had to say about the other cornerbacks on Atlanta's roster. Kevin King. They weren't very kind, by the way. Like, you guys might think I'm overly critical at times. They were very just mean. Kevin King, this is the abbreviated version. No snaps in the last 2 seasons, and he was burnt in coverage. Remember the Packers? I think this was Kevin King. Yeah, maybe not. The Packers-Bucks playoff game when Tom Brady found the white wide receiver who was on the Falcons last year, and his name is escaping me, but whatever. He found him at the end of the first half. That was Kevin King in coverage, I think. Or maybe not. But if it was, another bad knock against him. Clark Phillips, 5'9", he's undersized. There's going to be a lot of zone defense with Jimmy Lake. And zone defense requires good tackling. That's not what Clark Phillips was really drafted to do. He's really athletic. He's a good ball hawk corner. Mike Hughes, first-round pick by the Vikings. He has been a backup. Like, he's a 22 starts in 6 years, right? There's 17 games in a season. The guy hasn't even started full 2 seasons through 6 years, despite being a first-round pick. Antonio Hamilton. Bleacher Report said he was the worst DB in football the last few years. I don't really know where they got that information. I don't think they had a good reason to dislike Antonio Hamilton. They just started going down the line, shitting on everyone else, and they're like, oh, let's just say he sucks. Like, he wasn't that bad, actually, last year in Arizona. But, okay, whatever fits your narrative. The point being is, I think cornerback may make or break this defense. Like, pass rush is always going to get more attention because it involves getting after the quarterback, the most important position of sports. But this pass rush is not going to get home in 0.2 seconds, which means the cornerbacks are going to have to hold up in coverage longer. So when a quarterback for the opposition delivers a 25-yard strike over the middle of the field, who are people going to blame? The corners. Like, oh, the guys are getting open. It's the cornerback's fault. Yeah, it would sure help the cornerbacks if the wide receivers didn't have 5 seconds to get open because the pass rush doesn't get to the quarterback. So I think the corners are going to end up taking a lot of blame if they don't get a good pass rush and the corners can't be sticky in coverage. Okay, if you want to get yourself some Falcons gear, chatsports.com/Falcons combo. We've got not 1, 2 shirts. 25% off over at Fanatics when you use our link. I put this link because I love you guys in the comments and description of today's video. So get it today, chatsports.com/Falcons combo. Okay, Scotty Miller. That's the Bucs wide receiver. It just came to me. Where were we talking about? We were talking about the corners. Okay, so that's fine. So, yeah, there were a couple of options that the folks over at Bleacher Report suggested for ways to improve the cornerback room because they just basically shit down everyone's throats of Kevin King, Clark Phillips. Here were those options that they had. Ahkello Witherspoon, Xavien Howard, Adoree Jackson, James Bradberry. The first 3 are trade options. James Bradberry definitely caught my eyes. So let's unpack it because trades are always going to be a little bit just more exciting. Let's be honest. Here's the issue. He sucks. Like, James Bradberry, he was a cheat code for other teams last year. Just throw it to him. Remember the Seahawks-Eagles Monday Night Football game when Drew Lock was the hero? Producer Reed is an Eagles fan. Every single pass in that 2-minute drive was to James Bradberry's side of the field. He gave up 740 yards in coverage and 11 touchdowns. Here's the crazy thing. That may not even be James Bradberry's worst season in the NFL. There is no one that seesaws more than James Bradberry. So he's kind of due for a big season. But I'm going to pass on James Bradberry. The Eagles have moved him to safety, which just basically is code for, let's make you less of a liability at cornerback. And we can't release you because of your contract is just too large to move on from. So I'm not interested in trading for James Bradberry. I could be talked into Ahkello Witherspoon. He was on the Rams last year. He was a Steeler for a while, just couldn't stay healthy. Like, look, 11 games, 9 games, 4 games. Finally plays a full season for who? Who? Raheem Morris, Jimmy Lake, and he puts together the best year of his NFL career. So if we want to talk about making an addition, Witherspoon, I think, would make a lot of sense with the familiarity and the production last year. Okay, so to wrap up the video, I'm going to take another shot because it just doesn't feel right that I led you guys astray potentially 3 times this offseason. In my defense, I said they'll get Justin Fields if they had Arthur Smith still. Once they fired Arthur Smith, I did cool off a little bit on the Justin Fields front, I think. I may be misremembering. The Bill Belichick one, that's not my fault. Like, someone got to Arthur Blank, and someone was Rich McKay and Terry Fontenot because they thought they would get fired. So that's more on them. That's not on me. Dallas Turner, I will wear. I still don't know if that was the right or wrong call. We won't know for years. But cheers to everyone. And I mean this. And not in the drunk, pathetic way, but in a much more sincere way. A little bit of liquor courage here. Doing this channel and hosting this channel is one of the best parts of my day. And hanging out with you guys, even though right now I'm just talking to a camera and a wall and a TV, I do feel the connection of the back and forth. So thank you all for who subscribe, comment, and like. And that's super cliche, but that's the only way I can ever know who watches the channel, right? So shout out to all of you, and cheers. Shout out your city, by the way. I spend all this time getting in my feels, but I want to know more about all of our beautiful viewers. So let me know where you're tuning in from. I'll give some shout outs on a future episode.